Yo, welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Like, subscribe, review, tell a friend, 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 tell a friend. If you not do these things, I have to assume you do not place gambling bets on football during football season. On today's episode, it's your boy Solo Dolo. This is for me, for you guys, coming to you live from my apartment, which I do every single time. I haven't recorded this podcast once, not in this apartment, but that's neither here nor there. On today's episode, we will be going over going to number 8 on our top 25 butterfly moments of the last 25 seasons. We will be talking a little bit about why a certain player apparently didn't want to get drafted by a great organization. But first, we're going to talk a little WNBA. I know, talking WNBA here for you guys. And the thing about it is, I think overall, we're going to talk about the season, and then we're going to buckle down into one kind of story that kind of caught my attention. So as of right now, the WNBA playoffs are happening. And unfortunately, and this has kind of been an issue with the WNBA for a while now, is that they don't really have a good place to have their biggest moments come up, right? As of right now, like I said, the playoffs are going on. However, football is starting both in college and in the professionals. They've already gotten off to a couple of weeks. Baseball, we're getting really close to the season coming to an end and getting into their postseason. And basketball is, just a couple of weeks away at this point. And if you listen to the commissioner speak on the Bill Simmons podcast earlier this year, she kind of talked about the challenges that presents, right? You only have the buildings for certain places. For certain dates. It's going to be super hard to kind of push the season up all the way. I don't necessarily know if there's like a great cutoff time. Me personally, I think that for the WNBA, I would believe that Labor Day weekend would be a great time to have your finals, or like around that time. Now, I don't know if you can push up the season any earlier, just because one of the issues is for them is going to be the draft, right? Once the draft happens in late March, or around the time like the college basketball season ends, they're basically playing. So you would have to have a situation where potentially the ladies who are drafted are not playing their first season, or I don't know if you want to push the draft even further back, so like it's towards the end of that season, so the players are out for a couple of months to rest and recover. But that might be difficult because they're not necessarily getting paid in a way, and they're kind of unemployed. Maybe you can have the draft halfway through the season and they're on the team collecting a check. They are ineligible to play until the following season. I'm not sure, but to me, that's going to be an issue for them, is to keep grabbing attention, because as of right now, this league is a one-woman league. That is Caitlin Clark. And we will transition to her. Her team is currently in the playoffs in a best-of-3 series. But a lot of people might not know this or might not have any care for it, because Caitlin Clark has been ruled out for the rest of the season with a groin injury. This season kind of reminds me, and I'm not comparing her, the player, to Michael Jordan, but just the season where Michael Jordan broke his foot. Right? If you don't know, Michael Jordan broke his foot in year 2 of his season. He missed most of that season, and the Bulls weren't very good that year. That's actually how they were able to get Scottie Pippen, or one of the reasons why they were able to get Scottie Pippen. But the point is that they had their foot. She has had numerous injuries throughout the season, and the excitement that was there for her rookie season that trailed into the playoffs just hasn't been there in year 2. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, like, you're operating at a situation where if your best player, or the player that is going to eventually, I believe, be the face of your league, is not playing, or just isn't being marketed in that way, the viewership is going to go down. Now, I'll be curious to see how these playoffs go, but the same vibe and the verb that I felt going into last season, going into these playoffs, just doesn't feel like it's there this year. And I think a large part has to do with the fact that she's no longer playing. And I know some people and WNBA fans will get really upset by this notion. But the idea is that at the end of the day, WNBA is a business. It has to grow. It has to scale. it has to bring in different fans. And unfortunately, bringing in new fans brings in a whole different sort of nonsense that I understand why the original or the OG fans might not like, but it's part of the whole business of the game. There are t-shirts now for the Liberty games about how much the prices are skyrocketing. Welcome to having a professional sports team in New York when you're good, right? Those videos that circle around when the Liberty were playing in the Barclays Center and no one was showing up, to now that the stadiums are being packed out, these are business people at the end of the day. They're going to get their money, or they want to do everything they can to get their money. So the idea that the prices were going to stay the same just wasn't going to be the case. And I definitely think the league is in a very tough like push and pull with like the core of their fans and what this new grouping of fans are. Because there was recently a report or data show that there are now more fans in the WNBA for the last couple of seasons have actually been men. That's not saying that men weren't watching the WNBA prior to the last couple of seasons, but the explosion has clearly happened in the last couple of years. And how the league caters to that new set of fan base is going to always be the issue for them nonstop. And how the players are actually going to be talked about and discussed and covered is also a thing that we're going to talk about, which is why we need to unfortunately dive into the situation with Angel Reese. So if you haven't seen or heard, obviously Angel Reese also had a somewhat of a tumultuous season with the Chicago Sky. The Chicago Sky failed to make the playoffs in back-to-back years. They made a lot of moves in the offseason to seem like they were going to be a playoff team. They traded their first-round pick in this upcoming draft to do so, and they weren't any better. Their best player, Angel Reese, missed a ton of time, and she really struggled in the start of the season. And the reason why we're bringing this up is because Angel Reese had comments recently about the state of the team. And if you didn't read it, I would highly suggest going ahead and reading the Athletic article that covers this story and kind of dives into what the issues were with the team. But by and large part, Angel Reese kind of sort of requested a trade. Now, it might not be a full-on get me out of Chicago, but the actual kind of thought process of it was the idea of like, I might need to leave because these people I'm playing with aren't very good, or that was what it came down to. Now, we will discuss this more when the OG Nina joins the show, because I do think there's a different dynamic when it comes to conversations and tough conversations that happen between men and women, and the type of things that kind of get played in locker rooms that at least I have been in or seen, or a lot of male locker rooms per se. Anytime there is a that is said per se, there tends to be a very open conversation of what like that take place. Now, I can't speak to how intense those conversations might get, but those conversations are had face to face. You're not really going to say these things out loud. It very much seems that this kind of either broke the Sky's locker room, or it very much at least like impacted their season, because the team suspended Angel Reese for the rest of the season, and they basically like had many comments of her teammates saying like, we didn't really rock with what she was saying. And there's this like stan-ish kind of culture with Angel that kind of comes into play with here. And I think for that is always a part of sports. But I think because of the things that Angel has to deal with as far as people talking online about her, and people seem to not have a general like of her at times online, there's also a part of it that just seems like she's not that focused on the actual basketball part. And I'm not even talking about like the stuff that she does off the court, whether if you want to say going to the Met Gala, have her own podcast, whatever that is. A lot of players have that. It's the fact that she wasn't playing very well. And you're the best player on the team, or perceived to be the best player on the team. You also have the right to be, or you also have the point to be the leader of the team. you got to be out there and be the one holding people accountable because they're there to watch you. Most people who watch this guy play do not necessarily know every single player on the team. They know about you, and they want you to go out there and lead them in the way that has happened. And what has been seen in the last 2 years of this guy is dysfunction. Now, is that all on Angel Reese? Absolutely not, right? There's never, again, all the time will say, it is a lot more organizations failing players versus players failing organizations. However, she has not held up her end of the bargain in terms of what kind of player does she portray herself to be. And for this guy, this is going to now be a very interesting offseason for them moving forward, with Angels being the best player of the team, because they've already had this mess of a locker room that they kind of have to go forward with. Do you try and get a new coach? Do you try to just get a new players? But like, this dynamic can't stay, because then there's just too much tension amongst the players going forward. So a very tumultuous time just overall in the league, especially for their two most talked about players for this next generation of fans that are coming in to watch them play. Speaking of teams, or speaking of players who dysfunctional teams and players who might be moving things, there's a report out by Adam Schefter earlier this week, came out I think on last week Sunday, that reportedly the Baltimore Ravens contacted Shedur Sanders and his team and informed him that they would like to draft him in the 5th round. Reportedly, Shedur and his team decided to say no, citing that they did not want to necessarily play behind Lamar Jackson because, as Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP, future Hall of Famer, the likelihood of Shedur playing at any point during his rookie contract with the Baltimore Ravens was slim to none. Because of that, the Ravens decided not to draft him. He slid down, and he went to the Cleveland Browns. Okay. So, on Shedur's side, I can understand kind of the thought of, look, I have no chance of playing here. This guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Even if they draft me, I'm going to be at best backing him up. And then I'm probably then going to have to compete every year to stay his backup. So there's no security necessarily in me going to his team, because it's not going to stop the Ravens from potentially drafting another quarterback in the next draft. And then he's going to have to keep basically fending off whoever the guy is coming in after him to be the backup quarterback. I hear that. But the conversation, again, of organizations failing players more than players failing organizations. My brother, you decided to go to the Browns. Like, the Browns are notorious for their large shirts of how many quarterbacks they've had start games for them in the NFL. They are, I believe by now, it's them and the Jets have officially hold the title of the 2 worst organizations in North American sports. I think we can all just kind of agree on that. And you decide to go to them. And I think what this also highlights is something that I feel like I've said on this pod. I feel like other people have said on this pod. Shedur, Dion, and his team gravely did not understand the draft process. Because once it became very clear that Shedur was not going to be a 1st-round pick or even a 2nd-round pick, you are then now in mode of, I need to go to an organization that will get me to be a good player, right? And I just feel a lot of how this went down was very short-sighted. Yes, I still stand, and I will still say that I believe Shedur Sanders will play games for the Cleveland Browns this season. I still believe that. If you're already hearing, because the Browns are now 0-2, that there's already some discussion about them benching Flacco. I don't know if they're necessarily going to bench Flacco now, but again, whether it's through father time or poor play, Flacco's not playing 17 games. When Shedur Sanders plays, that's anyone's guess. But I still firmly believe that he will get action this year. But that's not necessarily going to be good for him because the team is going to be terrible. And if they're going to be bad enough, which I think everyone kind of assumes they're going to be one of the 4 worst teams in the league, they're drafting a quarterback next year. So while, yes, you would have been playing and having to fight for your life to stay on the roster for if you're on the Baltimore Ravens, that's happening next year anyway. Once you get past round 2, there are no guaranteed spots for anybody on the team. And like I said, it's just so short-sighted because if he had went to the Ravens and if he played on the team and was able to learn and show that he can be, at worst, a quality backup, someone's giving him a contract just to see if he can play, right? You know how many teams that are just thirsty for quarterbacks to get through and get around? And also, guys get hurt all the time. God damn it. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've already had several quarterbacks be hurt this year. We're in week 3. Okay? So I understand that you went to a team and you were upset that you were not at least a first-round pick, probably a second-round pick as well. But not being able to see the forest from the trees, to me, is a grave mistake. And the fact that this is now coming out, I absolutely think that the leaks start coming out when people decide to start talking about it. And I do not necessarily know how well this is going to be going for Shedur soon, because it is even being reported now that it's like he's not even taking like scouting team reps. Again, you're not going to convince me that he is being set up to fail. I just think he got drafted by the Browns, who, again, have been terrible for decades. So I don't think this has anything to do with Shedur. I think this has to do a lot to do with the Browns being the Browns moving forward. But with that all said, we are coming to the close. We have to give out our number 8 spot for the top 25 moments of the last 25 years, butterfly moments, that is. We will be talking to you guys about something that happened that was very unprecedented at the time. No one really knew what was happening, but it kind of had to be something that took place. We are talking about the NBA bubble. Yes, we're talking about the NBA bubble. This is back in 2020. It's 5 years ago already. Thinking about how that all went down. For those of you who don't remember or even don't want to remember, COVID had just started early that year. I remember vividly the idea of the players and the commissioner talking about that they were not going to play with fans in the stands. And I was like, they're not playing with fans? I was like, wow, this thing has gotten that serious. And then it got even more serious after that. And I think the thing with the NBA, and especially Adam Silver, was they got caught in a very precarious situation. They basically had to be the first league to be the guinea pigs onto what the hell to do, right? This was very much a throw ideas at the board and whatever sticks is going to stick. And what ended up happening was they came up with the bubble, NBA bubble, which produced the NBA champions, which were the Los Angeles Lakers, defeating the Miami Heat. And it was something that was able to help LeBron James get his 4th championship, and the championship that I think a lot of people needed to solidify solidify his career with the Lakers. The reason why the bubble is so impactful is not just because that it was, again, the first season. It was the first league to start playing since COVID began. It's not even just the fact that there was a sense of like normalcy watching the games. There was so much more political activism in the bubble that I think a lot of people forget about or want to forget about. Kyle Rittenhouse shooting happened in Minnesota during this time. The Black Lives Matter protests were taking place throughout the year before the bubble even began. They put the Black Lives Matter logo on the court. They had a lot of players with quotes on the back of their jerseys if they wanted to have that as well. But the biggest thing, and the one thing that I think that happened that I don't think we will ever happen again, and honestly doesn't get talked about as much, is the Milwaukee Bucks forfeited a game. Like, that happened. They didn't play in a game because of the shootings that took place in Milwaukee. And because of, I think, the dramatic shift in culture, especially now with free speech, that has taken place in this country since then, and also the fact that their best player is not from here, that was a big ask for an entire team to realize that we're not going to play because of this moment that took place in their home city, even though they weren't actually playing in their home city at the time. And it goes to show you just how fast cultures can shift. People don't need me to tell you, rather, of the times that we're in, the crackdowns on free speech. There's already a report right now, as of recording of this podcast, that there will no longer be a late night show with Jimmy Fallon due to his comments about a recent killing. And the way shift over that we have now seen into silencing people, I think it's a very scary time for a lot of people to think about. And I think the reason why this is number 8 for us is just how that overall all impacted society and how much change we have seen since that moment, since then. So that is the reason why it is number 8 for us. And also, again, LeBron getting that 4th ring, which I think from a sports angle was the thing that he needed the most for his own career to help elevate him in his NBA status. All right, everyone. That is it for us for today. Thank you guys again for listening. Again, like I said, please like, subscribe, review, and tell a friend and tell a friend. This is the Men Who Cry podcast. We'll be back again to talk to you guys later. Peace.